Hello, and welcome to another episode of For the Love of Sports. My name is Michael Rasile. This is the show where we get to talk about sports, we get to talk about business, and we get to talk about everything in between. Wherever you're listening, however you're listening, you know what to do. 5-star review on Spotify, like and subscribe on YouTube, and over on Apple Podcasts, give me a 5-star review and say something really nice about my incredible guest today. I have Coach David Thorpe. He is a partner and analyst for True Hoop. He's a former NBA analyst for ESPN, author of Basketball is Jazz, and known as the Godfather of player development. Coach, how you doing today, man?
I'm great. Looking forward to talking.
Pleasure is all mine. I hope it's cool that I call you Coach. It's just something I've always done, and it works for me. So,
Dad, Coach, and David are pretty much the three things the other ones I won't say publicly.
Yeah. I'm sure your wife has some choice names. Maybe your dog says something to you every once in a while. But more importantly, very excited to talk about you, your incredible career, what you've done. Obviously, we have the NBA Finals right on our doorstep here in a couple days as of recording. But, David, first question I have for everybody on the For the Love of Sports podcast is, why do you love sports so much?
For me, it started when I was a kid just because my dad seemed to like it. And, I remember reading the sports section. Where I'm from has a really great newspaper, not so much anymore because of what's happened in newspapers, but the Sapie Times was like a really famous paper for many years as one of the few independently owned large newspapers. And we had great sports writers. So I loved reading. I loved reading about the sports. I've been playing since I was 8. I played baseball when I was 8. Back then, that was the earliest you could play, nothing before that. Now, as an adult, it's a business for me, but there's a love coming from the passion of effort and a work ethic, making dreams come true, the pain of not seeing them to fruition. Very Shakespearean, very dramatic, and so it's been, I love my wife and kids more than sports. I love reading more than some sports sometimes, but it's a pretty fun way to make a living, and I love being a fan sometimes. So I don't have to analyze anything. I watch Tampa Bay Rays baseball, which is fun to watch these days. I've watched a little Lightning hockey in the postseason, which this year wasn't great, but they've been great for years. Just because I don't know a damn thing about those sports compared to my sport, and it's nice not to know so much and just be a fan, because I don't get that with basketball.
That's so true, man. Yeah, I'm sure you watch a game and you're thinking of all the other things that could have happened or should have happened or would have happened, right? Where
Correct.
You can just sit down and watch the Tampa Bay Rays do what they do, and
Right.
it is beautiful baseball, right? So you can just enjoy it at face value, which sometimes seems kind of nice.
For sure.
Lucky you, man. Lucky you. And yeah, Tampa Bay. I mean, I assume the Bucks as well. You've had a pretty solid run down there. Not too bad. Not quite city champions like Boston, but you guys have been doing pretty good.
Well, yeah, we've. Again, I used to go to all the Buccaneer games for decades with my father, who passed a couple years ago. We stopped going before he died. I really haven't had time for football in quite a bit, but I had seen tickets the year they won their first Super Bowl with Brad Johnson as quarterback, and I haven't followed it much since. But yeah, my son has a shirt called Champa Bay instead of Tampa Bay because Rays won the World Series. We're in the World Series. Lightning, Stanley Cup, Buccaneers champion. So yeah, it's been good.
Not a bad couple year stretch here as a Mets and Giants fan. I'd take that.
Right,
Literally
exactly.
ever. So, very, very appreciative there. So, as we were saying, right, so as of recording, this is Tuesday the 30th. Happy Memorial Day. Hope everyone enjoyed their weekend. We have the NBA Finals coming up. Now, I say the city of champions for Boston. I say it with a lot of disdain, a lot of, not hatred, right? I don't like to use that word, but I'm very jealous. Let's just put it that way. I'm very jealous, very envious. We watched Boston collapse. We don't really need to talk about Boston or the Lakers, even though the NBA really would have loved the Lakers-Boston championship. Let's talk about the Nuggets and the Heat, man. I mean, you have two awesome teams. Both have been great for the last few years. Jamal Murray coming off that really awful injury that kind of set the Nuggets not quite aside, but we really had to wait to really see them at their Final Four. And here we are. They look incredible. What are you looking for from, I guess, your perspective, the way you watch the game? What are some of the little nuances? What are the little things that you're watching that maybe me as a fan who might just have a couple beers on the couch watching the game, what are you seeing a little different than me?
So the speed of Miami's defense really set a tone, I thought, in the Celtics series, even in the last game, where everything just to me felt a beat or half a beat even more rushed for Boston on not everything, on many possessions, on many of their shots. I do think it's one reason why Boston shot so poorly. It's just one of many variables in any game. And I don't know that Miami, after that 7-game series with, basically 3 days you're in Denver. They're in Denver right now. They flew there last night at altitude against a super rested team with Jokić being the best big man passer of all time. And where he tends to operate is more towards the middle of the court, which he can find someone on both sides, which kind of mitigates some of the advantages Miami's speed has in the sense that he can fake pass and move guys around and make those passes. They've got size in Michael Porter Jr. as a shooter, which is hard to close him out. Murray's a big guard, great shooter. And Aaron Gordon as a cutter. The fatigue factor of a 7-game series, altitude first 2 games. I don't know that Miami's speed can impact Denver as much as it did, I thought, Boston. I think Jokić is better than Jason Tatum, so you also have to factor in the better player factor. He's the best player in the world, has been for 3 years in my opinion. And yet Spoelstra is a better coach than Mike Malone, who's a solid coach, but Spoelstra is better. So you'll think he'll scheme some things up pretty good. The Heat might be getting back Tyler Hero in Game 3 if they can win a game in Denver, and Tyler can just give them 5-6 minutes a half and make some shots. That can make a difference. But I think ultimately Denver's the better team. It doesn't mean they'll win. I thought the Heat could have, if the Heat had played Boston 100 times in Game 7, I thought they'd have won about 35. I now may figure a little differently, but Boston just shot terribly, only in part because of Miami, and also because it just didn't shoot well. And there might be some underlying factors there that kind of came out. We don't really know. But for Miami to take down Milwaukee, the Knicks, and Boston, they are to be respected and admired. And Denver, I know, feels that way. They're not going to come in there and just roll over them. But they probably do have the better team. Look at Denver's not a great offensive rebounding team. Miami's not a great defensive rebounding team. If Denver can beat them up on the offensive glass, that'll be a problem because of their size. That's an issue. How Kyle Lowry plays one good game in 3 or 4. You'd like to, with an extra day of rest between some of these games, you'd like to see that increase a little bit. Vincent, Duncan Robinson, and Caleb Martin, just astounding. Really just astounding. Can they keep that up? Bam Adebayo has been kind of an offensive no-show at times. Denver won't be as stiff a test as Boston was for him. And so these are the narratives. We don't know what's going to happen yet. They've got to play the game.
And I'm very excited. Yeah, hopefully we get a couple games. I'm always rooting for Game 7. But I mean, I think during this playoff run, Jimmy Butler has solidified himself as my favorite basketball player. Like I don't even think it's close. Just the way what he did against the Bucks, what he did against the Knicks, and the way he does it too. And then especially those first 3 games against Boston. Obviously, he was gassed in Game 7
and injured
and bad. Oh yeah,
injured. And so was Tatum. To be fair, if Tatum doesn't hurt himself in the first play of the game, though, injuries do come more frequently when you're exhausted. He played, I thought, way too many minutes, but all these NBA coaches do that, not just Joe Mazzulla from Boston. And, I mean, Boston probably wins the game if that injury never happens because he's a tremendous player. He's one of the best players in the world, for sure. And he wasn't able to do much, and that kind of killed Boston right there probably.
Yeah, once the fourth quarter rolled around and they realized, hey, let's just put him in every action. Like anything we can put Jason Tatum in, have any of our players go up against him, and it ended up being a good matchup. He was tired, hurt, mentally, physically. Like there's only so much you could do. Big Duke fan, so very big Jason Tatum fan, and it's just kind of one of those things. It's just unfortunate to see it happen, but again, everybody's hurt. It's the playoffs. That's just kind of how this stuff works. So appreciate the nice, thorough explanation of some of the things that you're watching, because I do think it's very important, right? The fact that, hey, if we can see Denver really beat them up on the offensive glass, then Miami might have a hard time, because we did see Boston beat them on the offensive glass, the Heat, that is, pretty easily.
In some of the games. But remember this, right? The game Boston had 17 offensive rebounds, it's because they missed 60 shots. That's why. Yeah, that's why. Miami actually Miami got destroyed by Atlanta in the play-in game, which is why they're the 8 seed and not the 7 seed. And they did much better since then. That one game, they gave up 17 offensive rebounds. Again, still less than 1/3 of the missed shots Boston had. Amazingly, Boston still won without shooting so poorly. But, yeah, that's what I'm saying, is that Denver isn't known for offensive rebounding. They did well against the Lakers with that, who's also a small team. Darvin Ham chooses to play small frequently, AD being the only big guy he plays. And so now we'll see, is Kevin Love healthy? Does he play? Do they play Zeller sometimes with Bam? I remember what the Lakers did. They put Rui Hachimura on Jokić so AD could play off Jokić. It didn't really matter much other than maybe one game for a quarter maybe. But it's a nice option to give Spoelstra, who also can protect two bigs if he plays more zone. Denver's known for being the best zone offense in the league, but they don't play Miami zone every night. They play the other 28 teams a bunch who may play some zone. Miami zone's better, and they've got a couple days to tinker with it, and they'll continue to tinker game after game after game, and how best to attack Denver's offense with our zone defense. Where are the areas that we want to protect more? Where are the areas we're willing to give up more shots? Against Boston, they didn't mind Horford shooting threes. They didn't mind Horford really doing much of anything, actually. Well, that might be Jokić this time. That's a problem. So now do they make MPJ being more of a shooter? Well, that could be super dangerous. Aaron Gordon, maybe that's a better fit. So you got to tweak the zone for that. So these are all things that will play out over the course of the first 3 or 4 games for sure.
And I'm very, very excited for it. And I'm curious, you brought this up a little bit ago. Eric Spoelstra is, as you put, almost objectively a better coach than Mike Malone. Not saying Mike Malone is a bad coach. I'm curious, right? In mainstream media, if I watch ESPN, all I hear is
that's a mistake.
Believe me, I don't listen to it that much. I'm just trying to make. Right. I mean, I listen to Zach Lowe. You're on the Low Post. I love Zach.
I don't mean
Lowe,
ESPN. I mean the TV coverage.
I'm kidding. Yeah. I'm kidding. Don't you worry.
The radio is fine. The podcasts are fine. The TV broadcast. Those guys are smart, but they don't give us their smart stuff. They speak down to the lowest common denominator.
That's why I'm grateful that I get you here, because I'm curious. All I hear is Eric Spoelstra's an incredible coach. He's better than everybody else, and adjustments. Those are really what is Eric Spoelstra doing fundamentally that is that much different, and why is he doing it? ESPN makes it seem very easy. Oh, adjustments. It's like, so what is actually happening? Because they don't tell us what's actually happening and why he is so much better.
So, first of all, I would not say it's the adjustments. I think it's much more he holds his players accountable better than most of these guys do. And that's a credit to Pat Riley and the ownership of giving him the security for a long time now. There's a long-standing rumor that I've read over the years. I've never heard it. I've read it. That when Riley brought in the big three, the Heatles, right, Wade with LeBron and Bosh, he basically brought them in and told them, don't ever come to my office telling me to fire the coach, because that's not happening. That is super powerful. And I have a feeling that message has been delivered more than once in different ways. If you remember Jimmy Butler and Spoelstra going at it a couple years ago, yelling at each other, Udonis Haslem got involved and looked like he threatened to beat Butler's ass. That's an empowered coach who can hold guys accountable. And they've kind of really they've walked into that brand of we're going to hold all of our guys accountable, not just our scrubs, not just our lower level contracts, but everybody. They're known in my world as a player development guy as being experts at keeping guys in shape. They do body fat tests. Their workouts are more strenuous in pre-draft or mini camp than most others. They really embrace that brand. And so I think they've earned. I've coached players that played for the Heat. Going back, Udonis Haslem was my first client 21 years ago, and in 2003, 20 years ago. So they embrace the brand of we're just going to outwork everyone. Everyone says it. They actually do. Yeah, I'm not saying they're the only ones that work really hard, but they're probably better than most at holding everyone accountable. And so they set screens better. They cut harder. They dive more often. They compete harder more commonly than these other teams because they're being held accountable to that. And then the adjustments are separate, whether it's changing the angles of screens, where we're setting screens on the court, who we're attacking, how we're attacking them. Knowing to attack Jason Tatum is one thing. Doing it over and over again it stems from the coaches demanding something of the players, and they continue to do it. You'll find many coaches in the NBA will call a play. The players may not run it, or they may cut it short, or they may run it badly. That happens a lot. I think they tend to execute much better, much more frequently than most of the other teams.
I love that. I think that's so important. Just because again, even on the broadcast, they're talking, "Hey, Jason Tatum's hobbled." Everyone on Twitter, Jason Tatum can't move. What are you doing? Attack him, attack him, attack him. And it took them a little while to get there, but once they did, it was repeated. It was over and over and over again. So it's just one of those things where it seems so obvious to me as a fan sitting on the seat or some dumb check mark on Twitter, right? Then a coach actually does it, and we actually see it happen. And it seems like from what you're saying, it's not really the coach not saying it. Are the players executing upon it, and are they held accountable like they are within this Heat culture, which we love to talk about and throw that around.
Yeah, that's how it is at every level of sports. Is first of all to have a coach that knows what's going on, or coaches that know what's going on is great. But what does it matter if he can't get players to do it, or she can't get players to do it? That's part of a coach's job, is to get that. And so your coach is really your lead culture builder, not your only one. Pat Riley deserves credit too, but Spoelstra has created that culture of accountability, professionalism, exactitude on the course. Dan Van Gundy was famous for yelling at you if you were 6 inches off the mark, which is what you should do. Like, it's a very demanding game. Every inch counts. And I just, as someone who's done this for, my first players were drafted in 2000. When I started doing pre-draft work. So I'm 23, 24 seasons in now. That isn't the same. There's not a lot of programs doing that. We have 2 finalists who are known for that. I have a player that's on the Nuggets. I know they do a good job with how they build their systems, how they execute their strategies. I don't think Malone's an elite coach. He's a good coach, and the evidence is right in front of us. And he has the world's best player.
Yeah, that doesn't help having Nikola Jokić on your team. I think that's pretty cool. And so from a player development standpoint, right? So we can take this conversation. Yeah, let's play a little choose your own adventure. You have Nikola Jokić on one side, some guy who was drafted, and we always see every time it's just the quesarito from Taco Bell with his name underneath it, right, on draft night. It's always a funny little meme that goes around. And then you have the Heat and Heat culture and the 4 or 5 undrafted free agents they have, and turning Tyler Hero into a walking bucket and all these things. Which would you rather talk about first?
I don't care. It's your show.
Perfect. Well, I want it's our show, Coach. Come on, it's our show. Let's go with the Nuggets. They've been hanging out for a little while. Nikola Jokić. Did anybody in the world, like even in their wildest dreams, see this guy kind of overweight, looks a little oafy, seems like a funny guy to drink a beer with and play some video games with, turn into literally the best basketball player in the world? And from your standpoint, how does someone even have that type of transformation this late in their career?
So a couple of things. So there are people who wrote that he could be a good role player. He was really heavy. And I wrote an article at True Hoop about him three summers ago before he won his first MVP. He had kind of melted down playing for Serbia's national team, like in the World Championships maybe. And I wrote about he's got to lose weight. And I believe I finished the article with something like, if he were to lose 40 pounds, I made up some number, just a guesstimate as to what he looked like, he'd be a serious candidate for MVP. You could see the talent that was there. I don't think my article is what inspired him to do it. I think he was sick of not being as good as he could be. He lost a ton of weight. He's very fit now. He just, in that game 4 against the Lakers, as the Lakers were tired, he was fit as a fiddle, running around and doing whatever he wanted to do. Spry, agile, coordinated. And so, I always say I don't think it was so impressive that the guy who drafted him took him at 47 or whatever it was. Just like it's not so impressive that Jimmy Butler was drafted 30th. That's not a discovery of talent. At 47, if you're the Nuggets and you think this guy has a chance to be an MVP, you move up to take him at 25 and eliminate any possibility someone could take him at 31, 35, 38, whatever. It was luck. And they did a good job building around him. Remember, they had Ian Jokić together. I'm sorry, not Jokić, Nurkic. Easy to get those names confused. The big Nurk from Portland. And they got rid of Nurk and bet on Jokić. That was a good move. And then they built a nice system around him, and clearly. And then I think he deserves most of the credit for losing the weight and becoming as dominant. I mean, he's really a dominating player. Without question, he should have been the MVP this year. If you looked at it scientifically, which is not what everyone does. But to me, we have advanced metrics for a reason, because our eyes can't see everything and our biases and emotions get in the way of a lot. He was better last year in terms of destroying the league and all the advanced metrics, all of them, by the way. He's the best in all of them when you look at all the different ways you measure a player. This year he was too. He just wasn't as dominant. And because he had won 2 in a row, and Philly had a great season. Embiid was unbelievable. They gave it to Embiid. I don't really care. But he's the best player in the world. So that's that.
It is very narrative driven. I remember when that started to shake up. I work in the betting world, so when everything, Jokić was minus 500, a clear shot, no chance, it's over. He won the MVP with however many months left. Then you started to hear the rumblings. Well, do we really want to give it to this guy 3 in a row? Oh, these are the only players that ever wanted 3 in a row. And then you start to hear that narrative slowly build, and then it gets to the point where it's, Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Jokić had like 4 bad games, and the Nuggets lost all of them, so that means he can't be the MVP anymore.
Right.
It's just kind of ridiculous shit like that, but it is what it is. I think he's doing just fine, waiting for the NBA Finals to start while Embiid is at home. So I think he's grateful that this happened and it worked out that way. And I'm just curious though, from like a player development standpoint, as you said, like yeah, it's luck. They picked the guy. Hey, maybe he might be a role player. What has happened to him though? It can't just be the weight, right? I mean, obviously
Well,
puts in a lot of work.
It's a disposition. So I used to always say about Shaq, he had a disposition to dominate. And I coached plenty of big guys who could have dominated, not like Shaq, but dominated, and they didn't have that disposition. Bam Adebayo struggles with that. Bam could probably score more. He's not as big as Shaq either. He doesn't quite have that scorer's mentality. Chris Paul could score much better in his career. Amazing player, point guard, but not the scorer that I think he could have been and probably needed to be. Whereas Luka has it. Luka Doncic has a disposition to dominate at all times. Well, Jokić, as he always had it. When he lost weight, it made it easier for him to do it because he could give more energy and more offense to stuff. And so that disposition, Joel has it for sure. Embiid, Tatum has it. Can't be afraid to fail. The way you can control a game, whether you score or not, the way you control a game, whether your shot's off or not, these are the world's best players find a way to do it. Most nights that they play, they figure it out. When Hachimura had some success against Jokić, even though Denver won game one, and LeBron, and I love LeBron, but he kind of arrogantly, and Darvin Ham kind of arrogantly said, we'll be fine. I said on our podcast and wrote, no, there is no world I live in that Nikola Jokić can't figure out Rui Hachimura, who's never been a good defender before. And as it turned out, that was right. Yeah, those guys figure it out.
They always do, man. It's an impressive, and it's been an incredible 3-season stretch. And then, as I said in the beginning, right now they're at their final form. Michael Porter Jr., not a 7-foot dude or whatever he is, almost 7 feet,
6'10", whatever. Yeah.
Jumping and hitting jumpers, kind of like going on a style Aaron Gordon rebounding and defending, and then you have Murray who just scored 35 points or whatever on 50, 40, 90, if I'm not mistaken, in the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen every other day. And then, oh, by the way, the best guy on the team is at the center of all of it. And then you got people like Bruce Brown coming over from the Nets, and you have KCP, right?
It's just former champion, good player.
Exactly. You need those guys.
Brown off the bench has been good. Yeah, they're deeper than what Mike Malone chooses to play. That's his choice. It's worked so far. It could bite them in the finals, but they've had all this rest. It probably won't. And there's an extra day in between most of these games. So they might get away with playing 7 1/4 players. Whereas otherwise, like if they were in the East, they wouldn't have been able to do that. They wouldn't get out of the East. But they don't have to worry about that. They're out of the West, and they're likely to be champions. Not definitely. I think if they lose game 1, I think it's a better series. If they win game 1, I still think they can go 6 or 7. I do think it's going to be a tough series.
So, Coach, one thing, obviously we talk about Nikola Jokić and what he's been able to do and how he's been able to become incredible and kind of do that. But with the Heat, we see time and time again, it's Heat culture, right? You talked about it a little bit before. They're diving on the ground. They're going for the rebounds. I think Kirk Goldsberry had a great article about deflect balls and, screen assists and all these other incredible stats, right? Awesome. Appreciate it. But more importantly, how are they finding these, undrafted free agents, undrafted rookie? Where are these finding these guys, and how are they developing them into legitimate stars like we saw with Caleb Martin? That dude's going to get paid. Good for him. Well deserved. Duncan Robinson already got paid. They're just helping these guys get paid, which we appreciate. How are they doing it?
Well, they use their G League program well, the Sioux Falls Sky Force. I think they're looking for tenacious competitors, guys that can deal with pain and deal with losing and deal with not getting paid much money, dealing with Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and playing a certain way, a certain style. And then if they bubble up into the varsity, as I call it, Spo does a great job of making guys play the right way, letting people do what they do best. What Caleb Martin does is not what Duncan Robinson does, not what Max Strus does. They all do things a little differently, and he gets them to execute well. I don't know they have such a great eye for talent as scouts. I think I think the system weeds out the guys that can't really handle it. And remember, the OG there, Udonis Haslem, was an undrafted player also, who they didn't even draft, and he's from Miami. So it's not like they have this great eye going back 20 years now, that was 21 years ago, for talent, as much as they're developing the guys they get that have a certain something that I don't think the rest of the league is caught up with yet. A couple programs may have. Oklahoma City looks like they're kind of getting it now, but most don't. And so that's a huge factor advantage for the Heat.
So, in your opinion, as a player, I just want to make sure I have this correct, the Godfather of player development, what could teams be doing more of to help these players develop? Because it essentially seems like after like the 5th pick in the draft every year, it's always like, well, it's just kind of a crapshoot at this point. Like we know a couple of these guys, and then maybe one or two might pop off, right? But in most cases, it's nothing. Is that just a testament to how incredibly high end talented you need to be in the league? Or is that a testament to teams not trying, not caring? What can be done on the player development front? Because I believe more people can be really, really good at basketball if given the opportunity.
Oh, there's Caleb Martins everywhere. Yeah, there's Caleb Martins everywhere, I think. So first of all, I definitely am not the godfather of player development. I know what people say, but on the business, I probably started the business of player development. There's always been coaches developing players, as I did when I was a regular coach. I kind of made it a business the way they do in tennis and golf, for example. And now we see every sport has trainers everywhere. If I was smart, I would have franchised what I did long ago. And I'm not smart because I didn't franchise anything. So I think that teams fail across the board. They don't appreciate player development, so they don't study it. I am thousands times better than I was in my 20s. When I started this business, I was 28. I'm 58 now. I'm 30 years in the business. I'm so much better now than I've ever been before. I'm still uncovering new ways to reach players. You asked me, what can they do? Well, they can start with caring more. One team told a player that I help, I gave him a long list of things to work on this offseason that I'd be overseeing with wherever he is, wherever he goes. He has a trainer, and I coach the coach that's doing the work with him. So I have this long list of things. I share clips with each one of his guys. Wherever he goes, they get clips from me, vision, notes, the plan, always scripted out. I scripted out this player's entire offseason. I want to say it was 15 weeks consecutive where I didn't know where he'd be because the team gets to decide a little bit. Is he going to play summer league or not? Is he have doctor's appointments back at home, whatever? So I script out each week what should be doing, and then he pencils in the details from there. I asked him, what did his team do? And he said, oh, they told me to sharpen my game. Thanks. He laughed. That's why I have a business, because these teams aren't doing their job. And I'm not worried that I'll be out of a job soon because I'm 58. So maybe I have 15 good years left in me or so. I'm hoping. They won't figure it out in 15 years. It's taken me 30. And I had a good head start because I really focused on this when I was a high school coach. They don't empower players. They don't connect with players or inspire with players. When I say they, I'm talking about those that fail. The ones that succeed, Jalen Williams at OKC, both Jalen Williams at OKC, and Josh Giddey from the year before, and Shea Gilgeous, and I can go on and on. The teams that are figuring it out have a huge advantage, especially with the new CBA coming, where you just can't afford to pay everybody. You better get more production, more efficient production from your lower contract guys, including your rookies and your younger players, because you don't have to pay them very much, and you can get more bang for your buck with them.
And we see every year it's who has draft picks left because what are they trading them for? That's essentially all it is, right? If you're a team in the race, like why would you draft a rookie when you can trade 3 first-round picks for somebody else like DeJounte Murray? I got nothing against DeJounte Murray, but I didn't think that made any sense. I got nothing against Rudy Gobert, but I didn't think that really made any sense. It's just like it feels like they're using these first-round picks and second-round picks now. If you trade one, you just trade all 5. It seems like you just kind of they're all out the door. I feel like they could be more valuable, and it sounds like to you, from your understanding of this new CBA, which I'll be very honest, I'm not 100% up to date on.
Nobody is.
That's also very helpful. Thank you. Those players are going to be much more valuable because, as you said, the opportunity cost that comes with only paying someone a couple $100,000 versus a couple $100 million, and the production that you can get from them from a dollar for dollar standpoint. If you can't make all the same trades and do all the same things, if you're $100 million over the tax and yada yada yada, why doesn't a team just hire you and have you develop all their players?
I had a team try. I had multiple teams try over the last 10 years, maybe 15 years. I'm not interested in that. But first of all, rookies make $1 million a year. My lowest paid rookie makes over $1 million a year. And and he was a second round pick. I think that some teams feel like we have to win now. I get it. And no rookie, every single rookie this year, except for maybe Walker Kessler, the team was better when they were on the bench, including Rookie of the Year Paolo Banchero and runner-up Jalen Williams. When those guys were on the bench, their teams were better because it's hard as a rookie for a lot of reasons. That's a whole separate podcast. My view normally is you should trade down. Almost always trade down, get more. Because in this draft, as an example, there's only one true Hall of Fame talent. The rest need to be developed. Brandon Miller, Scoot Henderson, great talents. Victor is in a class by himself by a good margin. And so maybe I was drafting 2 or 3. I'd take one of those 2 guys. Probably not. I'd probably trade down and get one of the other top 15 picks and maybe get a second pick somewhere in the top 15. So I have more bites of the apple, so to speak, as to who can really – you're only guessing who's going to be the great player because you can only do so much research. You're not living with the guys. And players get affected by the status that they reach. I don't know that John Morant was carrying a gun around. Where he might have been, but he also may not have been before he was John Morant, the absolute superstar, and deservedly so. Players get lazy. I've had many players who flat out told me, when I get my big contract, I won't work with you anymore. Don't take it personally, but I've reached my potential. I don't need any more money after this first big deal. I literally had a guy tell me once, if I get a 5-year, $40 million deal, this was back 15, 12 years ago, which when that was good money, 8 years, $8 million a year was above average. He was, his early 20s, like, I'll be set for life. Okay, that happens a lot. So that's a crapshoot by the teams. You don't really know. You can develop as much as you can. Our teams aren't very good at developing emotional IQ. They're not very good at developing a family culture. It's hard in any business. And so to me, the more young guys you can get, see who kind of mine them for gold, so to speak. See who really, like, that's what Sioux Falls is for Miami. You get through Duncan, Gabe Vincent. They went through that program. Strus, I think, too. So, and Martin was a two-way player. Caleb was. They started in the G League. So I think that's the better way to do it. Is they're proving you don't need draft picks. You need young guys and develop them.
And no offense to Sioux Falls, I think if you work really hard, you get to go to Miami. I think that's just another extra. Yeah. Let's tick that box. It seems a little bit more fun on South Beach with a lot of money. No offense to Sioux Falls again.
I have family in North Dakota from my wife's side. My family's from Miami. I don't live in Miami. I live in Florida, not Miami. Yeah, it's a big difference.
Yeah, as a 20-something-year-old with seemingly unlimited money, I think I'd much rather be there. And so you bring up the point, like, some players, it's about the money, it's about the contract, and that's fine. To each his own, go make your money. I'm all for that. From your perspective, though, thinking of player development as a holistic, it's not just specifically about the basketball court. It's about life. It's about personal development. It's about growth as a human being. How do you try and make sure that your players that you work with every single day are understanding that aspect of it too? Because obviously one begets the other. You can't just be good at basketball and the rest of your life be shit. It's most likely not going to come as easy if you were able to be good at other parts of your life. How do you try and incorporate that throughout all of your teachings?
Well, I try to tell. Coaches are storytellers. I'm a writer also, so I'm not necessarily great at telling stories. I'm great at wanting to tell them. I don't know how often they're effective, but I try. So I talk a lot about my family, my kids, my wife of going on 33 years in 2 months. I just lost my dad a couple years ago. All my players knew about that. My mom's still doing fine in her 80s. And so I talk about family, and we talk about nutrition decisions and partying decisions and enjoying their life while they're young, but also being mindful, which is not really very hard. Most of these guys are incredibly professional when it comes to not partying too hard, too often, that kind of thing. Much more so. My twins will be 22 on this coming week. So I know what college kids can do. And these young people, in many cases, are my kids' age. And they make great decisions very frequently. But I tell all my players, I have to love you like I do my own children, even though I don't. I'm very honest with them. But that means I have to care about everything. And so, for example, I have an agent. People don't know this, but our podcast got interrupted because I lost my internet, and I had a text from an agent while I was restarting my computer, who said basically, my player, he's a very good young NBA player, very, very good, like future All-Star, future All-NBA type talent. And the agent wrote to me he wrote that he keeps canceling his physio appointments, meaning stretching and that kind of thing. He's doing his strength. He's doing his on-court basketball stuff. He's canceling the physio. It was only day 2. But still, 2 days he could have been doing physio because he's young and feels like I don't really need that. I feel great. And so I know why the agent's texting me because he is the agent.
You're the bad guy.
Yeah, I'm a coach. I'm allowed to be the bad guy. And I can deliver. I always tell people I can help them make jump shots. I can talk to them about more important life lessons, which is what I've been doing since I was 22 and really faking it. What did I know at 22? But I was coaching high school kids then. So at least I've been a college grad at a great school and everything. And so because I could teach them a bit better basketball, I can reach them on more important life lessons. So I will be having a conversation with this young man about LeBron James has lasted as long as he has, in part because in high school, he was getting extra treatment because Nike invested a lot of money in him. I talked to a coach from his high school team back then and said we had state-of-the-art everything when he was 15 years old, paid for by Nike. Now, I don't know what the truth is, but that's what the guy told me. I believe it. And so don't wait until you already feel run down before you start taking care of your body. That's the message I have to give this young man who's a very serious professional, but he's young and doesn't know any better. So to me, you got to talk about it. You got to talk about it. And I think the Heat do a great job of this. I think the better programs do it. Some of the others, you're on your own. So colleges too. Some colleges are really, my son plays at Florida State. They're very tight. They know what's going on all the time. There's a reason why their players have done so well so often. The teams have done well. And you don't really read scandals about their basketball team so far in 20 years anyway. I hope my son's not the first. Some other programs, yeah. Some other programs are very loosey-goosey. You're on your own. You're an adult. Well, I got 2 twins. People would say they're smart kids. My son's going to graduate after 3 years of college. My daughter chose not to, but she could have because COVID sucked their first year. So we said, slow down. So they're not stupid, but they're pretty stupid, as I tell my kids all the time. They're not fully baked just yet. College kids are young, so these NBA guys. So I think they need guidance, and you can't be afraid to coach them up on it.
Yeah, it's they're not stupid because they're stupid. They're stupid because they're young. Exactly. Like even
experience.
Exactly. I mean, I'm 31 now. I look back, and at 22, I thought I was brilliant and I was very smart and I had nothing to worry about. Looking back now, I was a total idiot, and that's like a detriment on my parents or how they raised me or just myself. It's just you're literally your brain is not fully developed. Just give it some time. You'll get smarter. I promise.
Especially boys, we're even dumber.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But no, man, this has been absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate the time and the technical difficulties. I just have one last thing I do want to discuss. Your time at True Hoops, what you're doing, you're a partner and analyst there. You're creating content. You're writing articles. I think you're a better writer than you give yourself credit for. So let's
I have a great editor. Thank you, but I have a great editor.
There you go. That's that stands behind every good writer. Talk to us a little bit about what you guys do at True Hoop and why you got into this content game. What you love so much about it.
Yeah, I was initially recruited to ESPN going back to 2007, I want to say, by some of the people that were there, like Chad Ford for a long time. And I interviewed 3 times, and I thought, it might be interesting to get a media pass to go watch my pros play instead of having to ask for tickets. I hate asking for tickets. So really, it was just a way to get free media passes. I mean, they paid me fine, but it was work. I thought, I just hate asking my players for anything. So, but then I realized the more I study the game, the smarter coach I get. And the more I know the league to help my players. And so I did at ESPN for a decade. I literally lasted 10 years, and 10 was enough. And then when Henry Abbott, who founded True Hoop, brought it to ESPN and then got it back from ESPN after he had served 10 years, whatever, he asked me if I want to partner up and own it ourselves and write smart basketball content. And I said, I'd love it. You're the only person I probably could partner with. I respect him. He's a brilliant writer. He has great editing, but he's a brilliant writer and is often my editor. He's writing a book right now, so he hasn't done as much lately. He'll be back soon. He's almost done with his book, and it's going to be an incredible book about Dr. Marcus Elliott from P3, who's a brilliant guy, sports scientist. And so basically what we do is I wrote 2 weeks ago about how teams should fake more, players should fake more around the rim. I wrote about Heat culture this last week, how they have a fuck you culture. They don't really care what people say about them. They embrace it. They talk about it. I was quoting an NBA coach who said to me, the Heat have a fuck you culture. I repeated it to Henry. He's like, ooh, there's the title for your article right there. Write about that. So this week, as we speak, I'm writing about the NBA Finals, obviously. But we cover individual, we come team stuff. We're not beat writers. I'm really just trying to see the future or explain something that's just happened so that the average person can understand, enjoy the game more. We're trying to delight our readers and then make the game more accessible to their brains so they can start seeing the game a little bit like I do. We do 2 podcasts a week. We tape every Monday and Thursday called True Hoop. And then I write an article or 2 every week too.
That is awesome, man. Good for you. On top of all the work that you're doing with the players, I think the one thing that you said was, it really struck me when you said it, is you wanted to learn the league more to help your players, because it does seem like, again, I listen to Low Post. I listen to more Low Post basketball podcasts than I actually watch basketball games, whether that's about me or about Zach or about or basketball. We don't need to get into that. That's another podcast as well. But just the fact that it seems like it's such an inner circle. There's only so many people in the world of sports. When you boil it down, there's only so many people in the world of the NBA. The more you know, the better you can help your players. Again, player development is not just the actual, hey, how is your jump shot? Is where can we get you in the right spot? Can we get you in the right spot so they can help you even more, so you can get more time on the court, so you can actually become better? Practice is incredible. You get to see it happen in the games, and I think that's a really, really smart way of looking at it from you. Did your time at ESPN, badge of honor, some might say, so kudos and congratulations there, and now you get to go do your own thing, man. That's not too bad. Sounds pretty good.
No, I have no complaints. I've been doing this a long time. I wrote my book. I published it in 2017. I'll probably do another one at some point. I'm busy now. I started a new business where we're helping high school players get college scholarships and helping those colleges find those players and then helping those players play better. That's part of it. I basically used my curriculum from my 2 decades plus with NBA players. And now with technology, how it is, I'm able to communicate with them so easily, sending them video clips, sending them voice notes, writing messages to them a lot, just helping them perform better so that they'll become more recruitable. That's really, there's a lot of people helping guys get colleges. Scholars, they don't really do anything like that. We're kind of unique in the business. So that's been interesting. And, listen, I don't just player develop. I also help strategize for players so they play better. I got a text this year from a player who was playing Miami, actually. And he's a guard, and we prepared him to play Tyler Hero and Kyle Lowry. We thought he would guard those 2 guys. He texted me 45 minutes before tip and said, Coach, they're putting me on Jimmy Butler. Help me out. Well, I follow the game very closely. So right away, I have other players in the league that have had to guard Jimmy Butler. So I was able to quickly text him some thoughts on Jimmy Butler. And not to say his team didn't do that. I didn't even ask him. He asked me, so I answered. And so, yeah, the more I know about the league, the smarter coach I am to help the players that are trying to make more money. The way you build value for players is they got to play better. And that builds their value. So my job is to help them play better. It's simple as that.
They play better. They make more money. They pay you to help them play better so they can make more money. That's not a vicious cycle. What's the opposite of a vicious cycle?
That's the business.
That's the business. That's the business. Incredible. Coach, where can we find some, I know True Hoop, but give us the website just so we know your socials. Give us all that stuff. I'll put everything in the show notes so everyone can click on it as well.
Yeah, so it's truehoop.com. We have a newsletter that goes out at least once or twice a week, plus our podcasts. And you can email subscribe, or you could be a paid subscriber and get more of our stuff. Twitter, I'm Coach Thorpe. I don't tweet as much as I used to for different reasons.
For the better, yeah. Keep your head mental sane. That's probably good.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy there. And Facebook's just my name, David B. Thorpe. I do have a lot of friends because over the years at ESPN, people ask, and that's where I write about my family. And I only say that because there's a lot of people. I get a lot of messages from guys who want to be more loving. They want to talk about love. They want to use the word love, and they've been raised not to do it. And I tell my son I love him every day. He tells me he loves me. I didn't say it enough to my dad until I got much older, unfortunately, and I can't ever do it again. I'll never see my dad again. So my players, I use the word love with them all the time. I want them to use the word love. I'm very much like Ted Lasso without the mustache, and maybe not as talented as Ted Lasso, but I do try to be kind and decent all the time. And so I have lots of coaches who follow me on Facebook for that reason, because they want to do that too. And it doesn't matter what sport you coach, by the way. If we inspire people more, I think we get more out of life, and they will too. And that makes us feel good.
I love love, very much so. LOVELIFE. It's one of my favorite phrases. No, I appreciate you spreading that, because No bad can come from spreading love. Like only good things. I tell all my friends. I tell my wife. I tell my parents, my brother, anybody that's listening. I'll tell them I love them because I really do. So
Yep,
I
that's
appreciate
awesome.
that, Coach. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
But I
My
appreciate your
pleasure.
time. Time's the only thing we don't get more of. So thank you so much for yours. I appreciate the audience for theirs. But other than that, hope everyone has a great day. Thanks, everyone.